My dear students and Professor Suryapalli Sujata and Professor of the Principal of the college, with both of them I have a long association. I've already participated in a major dharna today, organized by the Congress party and other parties. I continue to teach in a college. I already spent about 3 hours teaching early morning from 8 to 11 o'clock, and then I went to Dharna, and Professor Ganesh and others perhaps are aware of the nature of activity I do. Friends, I came to this university in 1968. That's why I took a lot of pride in coming here. Whenever Osmania University students or faculty or anyone calls, I come here. I came here when I was a 16-year-old boy to do my undergraduation here. I know the history of this university, quality of this university. I did my BA here, I did my MA here, I did my PhD here. I became a lecturer in 1975. And this university has given me an opportunity to travel across the world. I spent 4 years teaching in America as a Fulbright Fellow and a Senior Fulbright Fellow. I was not in Osmania University from 1984 to 1995. But of course, I retired from here. This university has been very good to me. Friends, in 1947, when we got freedom, there were only 14 universities in India. 1947, there were only 14 universities in India. Osmania University is one of them. And that is the kind of a history this university has. It's one of the oldest universities in this country. Who is who, as both Professor Ganesh and others said, who is who in the field of economics, political science, technology, engineering, have all passed out from these universities, and they've made enormous contribution for growth and development in various kinds of fields. It's rather unfortunate when my friends have spoken, and I'm aware about what is happening in Osmania University, how it has unfortunately collapsed, how it has degenerated, particularly in the last 10 years, has degenerated to what it is. I think I would like to take a couple of minutes and talk about what is the role of a university. The role of the university is to, in addition to imparting knowledge, it has to develop curiosity. It has to make people think. It has to give knowledge. Knowledge is power. Information is power. With that, if you do not have that kind of a knowledge, in fact, when you look at, the present context of the situation, knowledge is not growing by the day, knowledge is growing by the hour in a technology era. When Osmania University in 1968, there were only 35, 40 disciplines. And we had 1,200 faculty in 1968. When I joined, even 1974, 75, when I started teaching, we had 1,200 faculty. Chemistry department was the biggest department. At that point of time, we used to have 170 teachers in chemistry department. Even now, I think it's one of the biggest departments in terms of faculty. So, in that kind of a context, when you talk about when knowledge is growing, now we are talking about artificial intelligence. We are talking about robotics. We are talking about machine learning. And these courses are growing rapidly. I'm not talking about technology courses. I'm also talking about social science courses. The way today we teach social sciences 30 years ago, 40 years ago is altogether different today. So when knowledge is expanding so rapidly, it is very important. All of you are sitting in front of me have to get that modern knowledge. looking at issues, critically. Today, even in IITs, no longer they are teaching only technology alone. Many of them in IIT Mumbai, I was there about 15 days ago. They're teaching a course in human rights. They're teaching courses in gender justice, gender equality. Knowledge has become holistic. No longer there's a compartment of knowledge. Technology students have to be aware of what's happening in the field of economics. What is the impact of globalization? What is this whole issue about gender justice? Or what is this whole issue about how the constitution is being implemented, not implemented? So if you are not going to be investing in higher education, in human capital, Professor Ganesh was talking about a Nobel laureate. There are about 22 Nobel laureates teaching today in American universities. I was in Wisconsin about 2 years ago. They said there are 3 Nobel laureates teaching in Wisconsin University. This university did not become just like that. We brought in the best talent available in the world to teach in Usmania University. Several of my teachers who taught me, all of them had PhDs from UK, United States, or some other university, and they came into this university to teach. That is why Usmania University, the glory is what it is. So we have to get to know that kind of a glory. How is it possible? Yes, unfortunately, for the last 10 years, this government did not pay any kind of an attention. Unfortunate. All of us fought for Telangana, written Telangana. All of you participated in Telangana, including me. We took, enormous effort to get Telangana state. But then what has happened? One of the major sectors which is completely destroyed is education in this part of the region. After the earlier Congress government started a couple of universities. And those universities should have been strengthened. When you look at the context of Telangana itself, among the 28 states we have in the country is different. That is why Telangana had come. 97% of the population, 93% of the population here belonging to the marginalized communities and marginalized sections. And that is where education becomes much more important. We don't see among the 28 states this kind of a population of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and the backward classes and the minorities. And that is where education becomes very, very important. I don't want to be saying, but we have played some kind of a role. Myself and a couple of others were there. Professor Kodanram was also there in the manifesto committee of the Congress party. We had a lot of discussions with them about what should get into the education. They have included some of them in the manifesto. Let us hope that they will implement what they have promised in the manifesto. But the state has got a power. The nature of the state, from one government to another government, does not change. All of us have a role to play there. We have to tell the state this is a priority. Professor Ganesh was talking about the budget. What is that budget we are asking for? I presented the budget of Usmania University as a senior most dean in 2010 in Usmania University. At that time, when I made a presentation, I'm talking about 2010. We asked for 660 crores in 2010. Today we are talking in 2023. He's right. We need about, 1,000 crores budget. 1,000 crores budget is a small budget for the state. When you look at, the budget they have, another university like Shatavana, Kakatiya University, many other universities which are there, perhaps, they need, another 20,000 crores. Totally we'll put together about, 20,000 crores. 20,000 crores is a small budget. When you look at, the other kinds of budgets, which you made. The only recruitment which has taken place in Telangana in the last 10 years is the police recruitment. That's all. Constable recruitment has taken place. In 1968, Professor Ganesh was talking about tea. In 1968, when I was a student here, the tea was 5 rupees, 5 paise. When they made 7 paise, we protested and we brought it down to 5 paise. Then, in 1968. Since then, we have been struggling. The police used to come in 68, next day. Now, when I demonstrate, the police is there before, we go there. That is the kind of a recruitment, which has been to oppress. Universities need to have autonomy, freedom, academic freedom, administrative freedom. There were, vice chancellors of this university. They said, no chief minister can visit the Osmania campus without the permission of the vice chancellor. That is the kind of a stature and status, they had. That is the kind of a prominence they had. Autonomy is important. They cannot meddle with our syllabus. There are a lot of disturbing developments are taking place in this country in terms of nature of syllabus. NCERT curriculum is changed. Communalization of education is taking place. In the name of Indian knowledge system, they are introducing courses in, astrology, Vedas, Vedic mathematics. University stands for rationality of mind, scientific temper, reasoning, logic, ability to question. Knowledge does not grow if you do not have that ability to question. I don't want to get into the national education policy. I'm one of those people very, very critical about national education policy. What is that policy talking about? What is this Indian knowledge system? Indian knowledge system. The Prime Minister of this country was talking about there were missiles, there were rockets, there were plastic surgery, 100 years ago. And unfortunately, the Science Congress is cancelled now. We do not have Science Congress. Indian History Congress is supposed to be held in Kakatiya University. They came and said, we don't have the money, conduct, Indian History Congress. And then, we met the government. I said, release some money. It just happened about 2 days ago, 1 day ago. All the teachers have come and said, we are supposed to be conducting Indian History Congress. They don't have the money. They came with a representation. We went to the government, and the government is in the process of releasing that money. Is that the way universities should function? That we cannot have seminars, we cannot have any kind of international conferences, we cannot even have proper kind of a teaching, knowledge. So in that kind of a context, it's very, very important for me to highlight a couple of issues, which Professor Ganesh and others have already highlighted. If you're not going to be investing in education, in what kind of a sector are we going to be investing? India is a young nation. 40% of our population is below 30. So it's the case with Telangana. 25 to 30% of the population is below 30. All these people, have to go to good colleges, good universities, good research centers, and then, get them qualified and contribute to knowledge and compete, globally. Compete, globally. And that is the kind of a education system we need to have. The key word today is innovation. That is the important word today. Innovation in teaching, innovation in technology, innovation in terms of trying to do new knowledge. That is what is required. And all over the world, when you look at the universities play an important role. And this university has played an important role in terms of critiquing government policies. Go back into 60s and 50s and 70s, 80s. There were scholars, there were teachers who were critiquing on rural development policies, Panchayat Raj system, local self-government. And whenever political parties wanted to have orientation programs, all of us used to go and orient MLAs and MPs about what's happening because they were not familiar with Panchayat Raj system or rural development or local self-government and their functioning. That is the kind of a role we used to play. So in that kind of a context, I would like to highlight couple of things. As long as we do not understand the context of a region, the context of the region of Telangana is a very backward region. This backward region has to get developed. It can only get developed through education and education alone. And unfortunately, in the recent elections also, we told them education is not your agenda. You talked about 6 guarantees and other kinds of things, but you did not put as a priority education. We are playing our own role. Maybe we'll be successful, we will not be successful. We are interested in seeing that they invest much more in education. Because all of us are passed out from this great university and we have a social responsibility. We have an accountability in terms of trying to, earlier government we did not have in that kind of an interaction. There was no debate, there was no dialogue, there was no discussion. Now there is some semblance of hope that there can be a dialogue. We can meet policy makers, we can meet ministers, we can discuss with them and talk to them, and we will have to tell them that they will have to. What is that is required. If you're not going to be allocating resources, how is the university going to be developing? They have to create world-class infrastructure. Is that possible? Yes, of course it is possible with all the budget which we have. I'm not really concerned about that we do not have the budget. A limited budget is required for both school education and higher education. We put it in the agenda. All of you can have access to that document, the manifesto document. We said minimum 6% has to be invested in higher education. That was our demand. Let us hope that they will invest 6% in higher education. And I said totally 15% has to be invested in both school education and higher education. School education is important. We need to get to know good students from good schools. Good schools. And majority of them, they are first generation learners. They are all going to these government schools and government colleges. And that's where we need to have quality education. As Gurukulams are there, the number of students who go to Gurukulams and is a very marginal kind of a percentage. 4% or 5% of the students are going. 95% of the students are going to these kind of schools. So it is very, very important that we need to invest in higher education as long as we do not make that investment. And I can certainly tell you Osmania University students have a big role to play. As we have been agitating for several things, we must agitate for that, we need to get quality education. That's a mandate. We are a welfare state. The constitution of this country talks about welfare, social welfare. Welfare means education, both school education and university and college education. If you're not going to be giving us that kind of a welfare, then why have a state? What is the role of the state? If the state is going to be privatizing education, unfortunately private universities have been started. We do not know whether they are functioning, they are not functioning, what kind of degrees they are giving, what kind of teachers they have. For the first time after the Telangana government came to power, then they introduced private universities. State has a responsibility, the government has a responsibility. We have to go with that kind of a standpoint. The state is not going to be investing in education. That we are not going to be keeping quiet because we are a welfare state. They have a responsibility, they have an accountability. That is where it's very, very important that we need to talk about developing of infrastructure. Professor Harish talked about it in great detail. Infrastructure means what? We need to have modern labs. I went to the chemistry lab about 1 month ago. I also went in 1968. I used to go there regularly. When I went to the chemistry lab, I was shocked to see that. Forget about chemicals. In a chemistry lab, there's no water. Forget about chemicals later. Students have to experiment day in and day out, different kinds of combinations to how different chemicals are reacting. There's no water there. What kind of an education we are talking about? We are located in Hyderabad. It's one of the leading universities of this country. As I've said, one of the oldest universities of India. If this is the situation, science subjects are important, social sciences are important, technology subjects are important, knowledge is holistic, knowledge does not exist in isolation. And then the nature of faculty we have. All kinds of terminology is there, part-time faculty, guest faculty, outsourcing, academic consultants, etc., etc. And then if they do not have that kind of a salary or a guarantee subject. All of us think in already education our salaries are very, very high. If you look at all over the world, the kind of salaries university teachers get is much, much lower when you compare to the rest of the world. You need to attract talent. You need to get the best minds into colleges and universities. Those best minds should be in a position to impart critical thinking to us, scientific temper to us. That's only possible provided we have that recruitment. In our own small presentation, we did tell the government that we must extract the best talent. That is one way. Yes, recruitment can take place, but then we must get the best minds, young minds, whoever is available. By taking certain regional consideration, we may have. There are available. People are available. Several of our students from Osmania University have gone all over to get their qualifications, to get their PhD degrees and other kinds of qualifications. So that's what is important. There cannot be any kind of a compromise in terms of recruitment. Professor Ganesh made that point. It's very, very important. We need to be fair. We need to be objective. We should be given the autonomy. We must be given the freedom to select the best people available in whatever kind of a field we are selecting. That's how universities grow. That's how a professor or a teacher must be a role model. Role model. And we had those kind of role models. That's why today we are in a position to sit here and talk. So it's very, very important. That's where, of course, other kinds of things, which we talked about. Everyone is talking about. We told the government also. I said, when you are talking about Public Service Commission calendar, why not a Usmania calendar and a Kakatiya calendar? We need to have that calendar. Students must get that assurance. Once I finish my PhD, I will get a job in 6 months or 8 months, etc. on the basis of a transparent manner. And it depends. I'm the role of the state is very, very, it's not going to make that kind of, but then we should set an agenda. The role of the university is to set that kind of an agenda. Students have to set that kind of an agenda to see that we get, because education is for empowerment. Education is not a luxury. Education is, for social good. Investment in education is absolutely necessary. If we're not going to be investing in education, what kind of sectors are going to be investing? There is, some kind of a thinking going on in some parts in terms of national education policy. Why should the government invest so much in education? Why should government have a... See, already there is inequality in India. Inequality not in terms of social inequality, but inequality in terms of higher education. Go anywhere in the world. You don't find that kind of inequality in higher education as we see. There are central universities, there are state universities, there are general universities, there are private universities, there are private funded universities, there are deemed universities. I call them doomed universities. We don't know what's happening in those universities. Why this kind of a hierarchy in terms of education? Institutions of national importance. We need to have one kind of a university. All of them are students. All of them are our children. They must get to quality institutions. Already that kind of inequality is built into higher education. And then if you have universities where you're not going to be funding, where will these young people go? Young people to go. Wherever there are many social movements which are taking place, they're not taking place in isolation. They're taking place because they do not have an opportunity to study. They do not have an opportunity to productively get themselves employed. So we need to understand the context of the region. The context of the region is this. And the entire movement in Telangana spread in terms of jobs and employment alone, in addition to water, in addition to other kinds of things. So it's very, very important that we need to have that kind of a first demand we should make from this forum. That immediately the budget allocation has to be hiked. 6% of the budget has to be given for higher education. Number one, there cannot be any kind of a compromise on that. Is that possible? Of course it is possible. I have some understanding about the budget. What is that after all we are asking, as I have talked about, we are asking for all higher education institutions 20 to 25,000 crores, which is not big money. And number two, we should say that there are several of our friends who have been working for so long. as academic consultants, 10 years, 5 years, etc., getting about 40,000, 50,000, 30,000, etc. Is that the kind of money we should be paying them? Who is eligible? Who is qualified? Who is in a position to get through whatever kind of a pattern of recruitment we want to make? We cannot have that kind of a system at all. That's worse than slavery. I think she used the word. Worse than slavery. We cannot have that kind of a bonded labor. And we are supposed to be critiquing that kind of inequality, and we are allowing that kind of inequality in our own educational systems. Professors get paid, others get paid in a different manner, and some of us are doing the same workload. I participated in several demonstrations which our academic consultants have organized. Supreme Court of this country said, if you are doing the same job, you must get the same salary. Supreme Court of this country said that. But we don't even implement the Supreme Court judgment. We brought that to the notice of the government. We are given data in terms of how many teachers should be there in various universities, including some of the universities which are established about 10 years ago. But that alone is not adequate. There must be pressure groups of university teachers and students. They need access right now to this government. We must meet them. And we must tell them whatever is there in the manifesto, whatever you have included in the manifesto, you must go about implementing. So if we're not going to be developing that kind of a human capital which is required, it will be disaster for the Telangana. Who's going to be critiquing? Who's going to be producing policy documents on irrigation, agriculture, health, education, or in technology? Technology. That is where it is important. If they do not give that kind of a budget, that kind of an allocation, that will be difficult for us to function. At the same time, it's also important for us. We must oppose any kind of a commercialization of higher education. Particularly in Telangana, we cannot have that kind of a commercialization of higher education because several of them belong to very, very poor background, poor economic background, poor social background. These private universities which are existing should not have right to exist at all in Telangana. Unfortunately, those private universities have been started. And we cannot allow any kind of a privatization of higher education. One more point, we cannot allow any kind of a communalization of higher education. There's always saffronization of higher education which is taking place in this country. Another major development of how history is being rewritten. History is not mythology. History is based on certain archival value. Today, entire history books are being rewritten. That also we need to oppose. Why do we come to university? We come to university in addition to knowledge, in addition to information, for logic and reasoning and scientific temper. And that rationality of mind is not going to be there. So it will become very, very difficult. The government is already thinking about whether we should implement the national education policy. We told them, not that whatever we say they are going to be agreeing. I said national education policy cannot be implemented in this part of the region because now that kind of an experimentation cannot go on. For 10 years, entire thing has been destroyed here. All sectors have been destroyed, particularly the education sector have been destroyed much more. And we told the government that let us not go in with that kind of a national education policy. There has to be debate, there has to be discussion on what is this policy is all about, why that policy has been brought about, should that policy be implemented, and all of you should know that national education policy is only a cabinet recommendation. It didn't go to the parliament. All earlier education policies were debated, discussed in parliament, and then they were passed. But here, national education policy is a policy document which only the cabinet of this country, the central cabinet, has approved. No debate has taken place. Very unfortunate developments are taking place. My dear friends, young friends should be aware. Many, many institutions of this country are collapsing. Look at the Central University Act. They have already taken a decision that students cannot protest in JNU campus or any other campus. Leadership emerges from here. All of us are right to protest if something is going wrong anywhere, nationally or internationally. If they're going to be stifling us, all of you know what happened in the Indian Parliament. 146 MPs for the first time in Indian democracy have been suspended. No debate, no discussion. Indian Penal Code has been changed. Criminal Procedure Code has been changed. The way Election Commission has to be appointed has changed. The constitutional bench of the Supreme Court of this country said, this is how the Election Commission should be appointed. The Prime Minister of this country will be there, Leader of Opposition will be there, and Supreme Court Chief Justice should be there. Constitutional bench has given that. But yesterday in Parliament, they said, no Chief Justice is required. And Narendra Modi, as the Prime Minister, will nominate a Cabinet Minister and they will decide. Institutions are collapsing. Why they are collapsing? Because universities all over the country, unfortunately, are not reacting to these developments, which are taking place. Lastly, I read a very disturbing report last night. NASSCOM has submitted a report. They are saying 80% of the graduates who are passing out from universities and colleges are unemployable. Unfortunate. They do not have the right kind of skills. That is possible, provided we have the right kind of environment, right kind of a budget, we recruit the right kind of people, we do right kind of teaching, we have the right kind of a syllabus in the context of knowledge which is growing. We need to inculcate, we need to include that in our syllabus and curriculum. The days have gone where we can review syllabus once in 6 months or once in a year. In view of the expansion of knowledge which is taking place all over the world, we need to get into that modern knowledge, modern theory into our curriculum. Blend them with certain critical thinking and creative expression. That's only possible provided we attract the best talent. NASSCOM report says 80% of the graduates all over the country are unemployable. They do not have the right kind of knowledge, the right kind of skills. That's a very disturbing report. And that should not happen in Telangana. Let us hope that, in view of the context of new government which has come, that, all of us, make that kind of a demand, consistent demand. And we must say that, as Ganesh has very rightly said, there must be a review. The Assembly of Telangana Assembly should discuss for 4 to 6 hours about what is happening in the field of higher education. Chief Minister should review what is the status, the quality of teaching which are there in universities. I know the conditions of the hostels. In 68, when I joined hostel, we used to have one person in one room. That was the kind of, we had the freedom. We could study any time, we can read any time. Healthy environment was there, democratic environment was there. We need to create that kind of a path so that we can have quality, excellence education in all the universities in Telangana. Is that possible? I think that's possible, provided all of us take interest. I'm happy that this seminar has been organized, which would mean that all of you are thinking in the right kind of direction, that how to go about strengthening higher education in this part of the region. Is that possible? With all our support, with all your help and initiative, and enormous amount of leadership is there among the students. We have to set the agenda to the government, and we should interact with the government and tell them this is what we want. What is that we want? We want higher allocation of budget. We want quality teaching. We want recruitment to take place. We need to have outstanding infrastructure, and we need to have good hostels so that we can live in a very healthy environment and a clean environment. And then, I'm sure, that we'll be in a position to not only contribute to this region, we can contribute to the country and contribute to the world, because several of our students are there all over the world today in this knowledge economy, contributing for science and technology, for engineering and for social sciences and human rights. That is possible provided all of us get together and tell this government that we need to have a different kind of an agenda for providing excellence in higher education in Telangana region. Thank you very much. Hoping that all of us will continue to have this debate, continue to have this dialogue with all the professors we have. We should, after all, democracy means setting an agenda. Democracy means equality. Democracy means equal opportunity. And the state government has a responsibility, and in some form or the other, they are willing to listen to us, and we must go and tell the government that listen to us and do that best, so that we can have quality education in all universities in Telangana. Thank you very much.